Preparing fresh organic beetroot. Need a sturdy saucepan. I use the old pressure cooker base, and then got about 1 kilogram or just under of organic fresh beetroot, which has been pulled and washed, so there's little or no soil left on it. And now if you twist, and you see what I'm doing there, twist off the stems, and then that stops the top of the beetroot bleeding. So don't cut them off with a knife, just twist them off like that. Pop them in there, straight into the pressure cooker. I'll leave the little tails on because I like the little squiggly tails. I'll leave the little tails, squiggly, yeah, put those in there. And now we cover that with hot water, or as near to boiling water from the tap as possible, so it just literally covers the beetroot. And then we'll put that on to bring it to the boil, and then let it simmer for about an hour. Maybe best to test it after about 3/4 of an hour with a sharp knife into the beetroot, just to see whether the knife goes in fairly easily. If it does, probably means that the beetroot is cooked. Right, that's now come up to the boil, and we're just going to turn it down to about 1 or 2, let it simmer for about an hour, but maybe just test it after about 3/4 of an hour. Just pop a sharp knife into the top of the bigger of the beetroots, and if it goes in fairly easily and comes out fairly easily, then it probably means that they are then cooked. That's it, the timer is now set for 1 hour. As you can see, one of my generous neighbours has kindly brought me over some more organic beetroot, so I'll look forward to making some beetroot soup from that, hopefully a little bit later on. The beetroot has been on for 3/4 of an hour. I'm just going to test it with a sharp knife to see whether it's done or not. Probably a good size knife to try with. I choose the biggest one. It's quite firmly through there, so I'm just going to leave that for another 15 minutes and see how it is. Then the smaller ones will probably, you can just about get the knife in there, so they're not far off being cooked. So we'll just put them on now for, as I say, another 14 minutes or so. Right, so now carefully drain your beetroot. Once those are drained, I'm going to take out one of the bigger ones. I'm going to cut. Take out with the forks, they're still very hot, so watch your fingers. I'm just going to cut the head off now with the knife, and then the little taily bit, which we left on before. And now we've got a flat surface to roll the beetroot over, and then whilst the beetroot's still hot, and it's much easier to do it whilst it's hot, you can just scrape the old skin that you don't want and all the debris there off, bit by bit. There. And we carry on and do that for all the beetroot. There we are. And that comes off, as I say, quite easily once it's nice and warm, but bear in mind that the beetroot at the moment is still very hot, so just be careful you don't burn yourself. Let me just turn that over slightly, then you can get those last little bits off. There we go. It's all nice and neat and tidy. There's a bit more there. It's escaping me. There we are. Hurrah. And that's all the debris, so I don't want any of that. Clean the knife off a bit, and then a trusty chopping board. And then what I do then is just to cut it into slices about 4 mil thick, something like that. We don't actually like putting the beetroot in vinegar. This is for salad, but we tend to prefer it without the vinegar, because I know my wife didn't like beetroot because she'd only ever experience it in from a jar with vinegar in it, but if you taste it like this once it's cooled down, it is absolutely fabulous, particularly with a cheese sandwich. And the natural sugar in the beetroot means that the cheese and the beetroot sandwich, energy-wise, give you a longer burst of energy than some other sandwiches, surprisingly. Enjoy! Just chop the top and the tail of this final little one off, and I'm just going to put the fork in the top, hold it in position and scrape it down. But at least by taking the top and the tail off, at least you've got a firm flat base to put on the chopping board to hold it pretty well in position, otherwise it's going to roll about all over the place. Oops. There we are. That one has it small. We'll chop it into little bits and pieces. It's one for the chef. This is quite, as the Italians would say, al dente, quite firm, but that's the way we like them. If you like them a bit softer, I guess, if you cook them, simmer them for a bit longer, then they'll become a bit softer, one imagines. So that's the organic beetroot on the right hand side from the garden today, and on the left hand side is the beetroot that's been put in the heavy bottomed pan and simmered, brought to the boil and simmered for about an hour, and that'll be now allowed to cool, be covered with cling film and popped in the fridge, and it'll survive for a few days, but normally it doesn't last that long, and put that with your salad or with your sandwiches. If you want it to last longer, I imagine then if you add vinegar it will help it to last a bit longer, but we personally don't really like it with vinegar because it takes away from the flavour of the beetroot.